Welcome to the tutorial that will go along with the mini album that I made using Authentique's Legacy paper collection. I'm going to show you how to make this album, but I'll admit there's going to be a few differences inside. So I will go ahead and keep the album close at hand and we'll get started. Now for this album, I'm going to be using Authentique. It's called Faith. It is a little difficult to see. The colors are more soft. Bring it up here. And actually, you know, this does have some faith-based cards that go with it. I will only be using a couple of them, but I'm going to use it for wedding. It's absolutely gorgeous for a wedding album, and I will be printing out some vintage bride pictures to go with it, just to give you a quick idea. So it's all your creams, very soft. It's also a beautiful paper to work for a baby album, christening album, wedding album. Look, isn't that just gorgeous? So perfect for the wedding. So this will be the paper line that I will be using. And I've already gotten basically started so that we don't have to go through all that boring paper cutting. So to start, I cut my paper, my base paper, because it's going to be, I want the side load tags, mats. So it's going to, you're going to cut your first paper 9 by 8, and your top will be 8 by 8. Now when I cut my top, I cut it about 1/32 of an inch shorter. I just barely make it shorter. Then I score 1/2 inch on each side. And I know that most of you have watched a lot of my videos or other tutorials, so you already know how to make these pages. And I didn't want to go through making all 5 of them with you. Then our score tape or your adhesive will go down. I do miter the top corners of these. Just barely. Sorry, I am out of camera because I wanted it to go in the garbage, so I just kind of take it off at an angle. Then let's put the top onto our page. Pull those sleeves up. Get everything lined up here. Now I'm using the Cartabella ivory cardstock, and I have to tell you, I have possibly found the papers in 8 by 8. To be honest with you, 12 by 12 is not my favorite size for creating albums, because when you cut it, we have a lot of waste. Not really waste, but it does start to build up. Sorry, I've got to grab some. It starts to build up, and yes, we do make tags, but look, there comes a point when you just can't use all this. So the 8.5 by 11 sheets, I'm just waiting for the samples to arrive. Plus, it'll be a little better price, because I'll tell you what, I am stuck on this. Really can't change my cardstock unless it's identical, because this is a very high quality cardstock. But 8.5 by 11, we could cut our pages down. The 9 by 11 have very little waste, and yes, I would love it, because really you cannot use all of those. So there's our first page, and like I said, I went ahead and did all this and got things ready. So I need to start with our first one. Now, this album design will take a little bit more paper because it does use I'm doing the mats, and I'll show you how that works. And sorry, I just need to grab one thing. My magnets. I forgot to grab them beforehand. Oh, and we have been without our large magnets while we're waiting for them to come in. As you know, I still am able to get the basic gray magnets. I live by the person, he owns, even though Basic Gray closed down their scrapbooking, they still have their fabric. And he is the manufacturer of these, so he does make them available to me since we're neighbors. which I'm very grateful because then I can make them available to you. And we have been dying without our large magnets. Had the small ones in stock, but I don't like to use small on everything. And I thought I was all ready. Should have had these open, sorry. So if you've been looking for the basic gray magnets, I had them. Okay, let's get started with our first page. So our first page has the 2 front flaps. And I cut my flaps, I'll give you the measurements, 3 7/8 by 6 1/2. So 3 7/8 by 6 1/2, you'll want to cut 2 of these. Then we're going to score, doesn't matter which end, at 1/2 of an inch. And let's go ahead and fold up our score. This one better for pulling it. Let me push a little bit harder. 3/8 of an inch score tape is what I use. Now on these 2 flaps, I am going to miter on my top one because I want to be able to cover it, and then on this bottom one, it'll be just the bottom, what would be your bottom. So if it was laying down, you have the top mitered and the bottom. Okay, now these are cut to pretty much fit your page. You want to make sure you have your openings to your left and right. Just lay these down first to get an idea, because I want a little bit of a space here, and it looks good. And I am going to have to use my sanding block. I apologize. I have to tell you, you know, I've got a huge cutter. So I decided to get the Caterpillar and to have a smaller one, because my dolly cuts my chipboard beautifully, but it doesn't like to do tiny cuts. I'm really disappointed in this Caterpillar. I'm still debating if it's going back. It just rips up my paper. It's not even pretty. I don't like that. So now you're going to put, that's the bottom, so we'll start with the bottom. I'm going to put it right down on the bottom, making sure it lines up with the bottom edge. And here on the side. And then this top one will go, of course, at the top. And that will leave us just a nice space where it will open and close. And I only have one page that I will be matting on camera. And it's, oh no, I changed that one. I'm sorry. I won't be doing any of the matting. I'll just be doing the building of the album. Then I don't do well decorating on camera. I don't, because I'm so indecisive. So what I'll do is after I get everything decorated, I'll do the other video so you can see the finished pages. And because we all have our own personal style. Now for these flaps, we're okay with just using the small. Let me check, because I remember I did have to use double magnets. Oh, actually, no, oh, no, we're only going to use one, because one will take care of 2. And let me tell you why. So I'm going to use my large. You could still use your small. It will work. And what we're going to do is put it here on the bottom. we're going to have to make sure, I made a 4x6 card, so we want to make sure we can overlap that card, and we can. Now what happens with your album, so you're going to make this, you know, whatever size, you can go bigger. I used the life cards, and the life cards for this one is pretty standard. So what you'll want to do is, if you don't have the life cards, which this other line has some, I'll see if I want to use them. So I will wait and determine the size there, but you'll see it adheres right down to this top page. And okay, the magnet is actually on this, so let me fix that. So you're gonna, let me see why I did that. Oh, you know what? That's where I used the 2. Sorry, I'm sitting here filling my book out. We're gonna have to change that. So let me change that right now. I do this. All right. I gotta figure this out for a second. So the magnet, we're going to have one of the magnets on this card. That's what I did because I didn't have the big ones. Oh, okay. Now it makes sense. Take your magnets off. Okay, for this one, we're going to wait because one will go on the back of this card. One will go down here on your base page. So one on the base page, one on the back of the card that you use. That's what's holding them both down. So we'll go ahead and I'll put this magnet aside, and then I will do that because I can't do it until I'm at the page. Now for the back side, I did the pullouts. So I'll just cut another one. What we'll do, now these are 2 pieces, and these I will be cutting on camera because each one is different. So we're going to cut, first of all, the first 2 pieces. So we're going to cut 6.5 by 7 3/4. Sorry, I do have to come off camera still to my cutter. Now you should have that piece left, which you're going to need. And what I want to make sure of, how well this will fit inside my page, because you want it to slide in nice, and it fits great. Then this second piece, we're going to cut, we're going to cut it 5 by 7 3/4. Now you can also change the width of this if you want. So we're going to cut it 5 by 7 3/4. Sometimes I will change the size of things depending on my scraps too. So with my 5-inch one, I'm going to score 5-inch side at 1/2. Pull that. Your adhesive, and then on here I am going to miter both corners slightly. Just enough that we get that hidden underneath our pattern paper. Remove some of my squirt tape. Make sure everything is lined up. Now you can leave off the pocket if you like. I want to put my pocket on, so this is 5, so we need to cut another one. I cut mine 6 by 7.5. Double check. No, that's wrong. 5.5. Okay, by 7.5. So we want it to be 5.5 wide. Now we're working with a 4.5 inch piece. I'm going to really be good about checking my measurements. So cut this top piece at 5.5 by 7.5. You can adjust your pocket, so you don't have to have your pocket. See, mine is only that 1/2 inch. You don't have to have it. You can have it a half. You can have it all the way to the top. You can change it up any way you like. Then we're going to score on 3 sides. So we're going to go 1/2, and then 1/2 along the short end, and 1/2 again. Now I did use lace, and being that this is a wedding album, I will be using the lace again, but you can take a border punch and really decorate that edge up if you like. And I'm just going to fold up both sides first, and I want to match it. Make sure it's going to fit. Yes, it does. Love it when it works on first try. Okay, after I get my creasing done, love the 3/8, fits perfectly in that 1/2 inch. Now, I'm going to do some mitering on my corners. Scissors. Okay, let's take off this bottom. And I'm going to open this. I'm going to start at this edge, the edge away from my fold. I'm going to line it up here just on the bottom to make sure we're going to, so we don't want to interfere with our fold there. Okay, by doing the bottom, then if I have to go back and do any adjusting, I can just pull it off the bottom instead of the whole thing. Now before I put this down, I want to look at something, because how many of you are having trouble, and I have tried everything, with tags catching on that fold right, you know, there. Unless we wrap it around the pocket, there's not a lot we can do. But I am going to try something. So I'm going to go ahead and do it, and then I'll have to come off camera because it's going to take a few minutes to dry. I don't know if it will work. Let me think about it some more. I can still go back. If anybody has some great ideas on how to keep your tag from catching up in there, hey, share with us. I'd love to know what you do other than, you know, wrapping it. Sometimes that's just not easy when you're working with folds and creases where you're folding, because you don't, well, you can't wrap it behind here, and so it just doesn't work. If you have any ideas and you want to share in the comments below, I would love to hear it. Now at this point, you can go ahead and look for your scraps, which is what I do, because we did a lot of, you should have done a lot of cutting. You should have a lot of pieces that'll probably fit, which I do, and it's one from when I cut it off. So I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit off of this one. And mine was 7.5. And I want to go ahead, miter my corners, because as much as you can get done in the beginning is great. Now for this, where it's a wedding, I'm going to use my deco. Oops. I'm going to put that in there, ready to go. And I'll grab my page. Now on the front we have those two flaps, so when you turn it over, so you have this side that'll go onto your hinges, then you'll have your mat that pulls out. Now in here, let me go ahead and grab those two magnets. I do want to use my magnets to hold it onto the page. So I'll just use those two large, or the large one that I was going to use on the front. Yeah, I thought I might have some problem with the sticking of re-sticking. Thing is, when you get it in there, make sure you have it where you want it, centered somewhat. Where you put the magnet down is where it's going to hold it. Okay, there we have page 1. Page 2 is the one that I wanted to change, but this was just the gatefold. Yeah, and it was a different way to do it, so I promised to do that in another video. I wanted to do a flap page because of a bridal, being that, you know, the bridal, probably a little bit more room, and I wanted, oh, I got ink on there. It'll be covered. I wanted my page to come down and then the flap up, and on this bottom I'm going to put a wide lace so that it hangs over, kind of sheer, almost, you know, fitting for a bridal dress. So on this one I do have 2 sheets, and I'll probably have to trim. Let me double check, because I like them to be perfectly side to side, as you know, and I think we're going to be fine. So we're going to cut this one. I cut it 7 7/8 by 7 7/8. My top piece, 7 7/8 by 6 1/2. So we want to take both pieces, and of course on the larger piece it won't matter. You just need to score 1/2 inch. The same will, basically same with the next piece. So how this will work, this is going to fold down, this will fold up, and then the back, and then we'll have the whole page. So you can see there's going to be a lot of room for bridal pictures. There's always usually more than one picture of the bride, so I want there to be some good space here. Now, the main thing to remember is this first one needs to be at the bottom of the page, and the second one, so you need your flap at the top of the page. Make sure we're perfect on the sides. If we need to trim anything, and I do, I'm going to trim my top piece down just a hair. And you know, that's why I bought this huge Caterpillar. And I'm just not happy. I know I need to contact the company. I've done everything, pushing the blade. So if anybody else has had these issues, I'd love to hear. Maybe I just have gotten a faulty one. Top. Let's go ahead with our adhesive, because I am going to put the adhesive on. Then we're going to put our pages on, or our flaps. Okay, so corners, just going to miter my corners. Going to do it over my garbage. Remember, you need your openings on your left to your right. This is going to go on the bottom of your page. Now, at this point, it doesn't matter because you could turn your page around if you needed to. CY, there we go. Okay, what's happened is for some reason it's a little off on each. It doesn't quite go side to side, but that's okay. It'll stay out of the way of the hinge. What I'm doing is just lining it up there with the very bottom of my page. I'm going to turn this upside down. Now I'm going to put the next one on this flap. And I do want to miter my edges. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you are putting a lot of flaps on, it's going to take a lot more paper. Pattern paper, your cardstock. So if you don't want to use a lot of your pattern paper, then you can go ahead and leave one of these flaps off. And if you only want one at the top or one at the bottom, that will help cut down on your paper usage. Okay. So, how this will work is we will be able to open it this way. So plenty of room for the bride. It will open down. And I'm going to use a magnet, but I don't want to use 4 magnets. I'm only going to use 1. So, and for this, if you're doing it this way, you will need the large ones. If you don't have the large ones, I'll show you. You want to go ahead with your smaller ones. Put one here, you'll need to put one there, and probably at the top. You know, basic gray is pretty great. You could get by with doing it this way, but I don't know how well, to be honest with you, that it will hold. So I'm going to put the first one on my flap. I'm going to take it off and then open it. So your magnet's going to be down a little bit further on your page, but that way you don't have to use more than 1 set. And if they're large, they will hold. Or you can use any other closure method that you like. I'm a magnet person. Okay, now, because they're large, just see it will hold. Now for page 2, I had the page that has, let me pull it out, our mat, but then we have a pocket. So again, we're going to cut our base 6.5 by 7 3/4. Let me get that one cut. Now this one, because each one of these flaps was cut a little different. So 5.5 by 7 3/4. Whoops, there goes the water. Good thing I had a protective cap on it. Okay, let's try this again. 5.5 by 7 3/4. Once again, you can adjust your measurements if you like. And let's go ahead and score on the 5.5 side at 1/2 inch. Miter our corners. And down it goes. And I forgot to double check, but I'm sure it fits. Just fine. Okay, we have to make our top so that we have the pocket. So you're going to cut your next piece, and you should have scraps. And that's one reason I made this the 4 inches. So it's 4 inches by the 7 3/4. And I made it 4 inches because when I was cutting, let me grab the pages for, to construct my album, you will have those 4-inch pieces, so that's why I like to use them. So it's 4 by 7 3/4. I just have to cut the length. And for my flap here at the top, again, I did a 3.5 by 7 3/4, and I did cut this just that 1/32 of an inch shorter. Okay, so we have those two pieces that are basically identical, and we're going to score the first one on 3 sides. Because it becomes our pocket. So there's some things you could do. You could cut, if you wanted to make that thumb hole cut, or you want to use your envelope punch board, you can actually cut that out. Or you can leave it just plain. Now for our next piece, because this is the cover, basically our flap, you just want to score on that 1/2 inch all the way down. Long side. And let's start with our pocket. You're going to kill me. Yes, you're going to kill me. And I hope you caught yourself. Good thing these were scraps, huh? I really goofed. It's 8 1/4. So we have to cut this at 8 1/4. Set this aside. Like I said, it's a good thing it's a scrap. Try that again, and there's a lot of those scraps when making these 8-inch albums, so I like to use them up. And again, we're going to score on all 3 sides. Oh, good Lord. 8.5. Okay, let's just say the mistake's done. We got it out of the way. No, I quit here. Oh my heavens, you guys. Really, I know this. This is crazy. 8 3/4. So you're going to cut this, if you're not killing me by now, 8 3/4 by the 4. You should have, like I said, a lot of these pieces left. Okay, mistakes done. Mistakes out of the road. No more. But we will be using those, no fear. Just have to cut those 1/2 inches off. And you have a tag. Okay. And it's a good thing this is folding over. I don't know if you can see. So if you've got a Caterpillar and you've experienced any of this, it's literally, I'm wondering if it was a return and I got a bad blade. I don't know, but check your reviews before you buy one. Actually, I did check the reviews and they all were great, but don't know what happened with mine. Okay, score tape, all 3 edges. So 8 3/4 on your 4-inch piece. Now it's going down here on the bottom after we miter our corners. And again, we'll miter and miter. I know there's a ton of ways to make pockets. And I do them all ways. It depends on what I'm making. When you're wanting room, you really want these gussets. It allows for more space. So we're going to line it up. Right on this bottom. Checking my sides as I put it down. And I am pulling on it a little bit to make it lay even with that side because it was off just a hair, and it's probably the way I cut it. Then our top piece, I do want to take my Crop-A-Dile or my corner. You can use any corner punch. Maybe a little bit more decorative if you're doing a wedding one also. I'll go ahead with my deco. Score tape and miter your corners. I don't miter them a lot. The angle, I keep it just a small amount. Otherwise, it does look like You can see it under your paper just a little bit. Has a cut off appearance, I think, under your paper, if that makes any sense. Okay, so I'm going to pick this up so I can match my edges. Get them stuck down. Now, on here, again, I don't want to have to use more than one set of magnets, so I'm going to go with my large ones. And I'm going to start with the flap, so I'm going to have to put it in a little bit. We don't want it to be seen. And then we want to put it down. Hold on, our page. So let's go ahead and put this in here. This is going to go down on our page. And you can see how strong the basic gray is. So not only will that magnet hold down our flap, it's going to hold our mat down. So make sure, or our flap, make sure you have it where you want it. Remove your backing. Pull it out here just a little bit more until it folds over. Or tape over just so it will hold. Then you're able to open your mat or your pocket, but it's still going to adhere to the page. And there is page number 2. Lots of room. And like I said, I'm going to use a sheer lace along the bottom to make it look like almost a wedding dress, bunch it up. Or I may be doing some new pleats. Now if I do the new pleats that I've learned how to do, I definitely will show you how to do those, and I'll share that idea with you. On the next page, I also am adding, let me just put this away, I'm going to add one additional flap. So I'm still doing this, I'll show you. So you can still do this or you don't have to. Okay, that's what we're doing next. And I already have those cut. So I cut 2 pieces 5 by 6.5. There's 2 of those for our little flip up. And then for the next piece, I have a 5.5 by 6.5 piece. It's only going to be like a partial show flap. So we'll want to go ahead and score. Magnets are attacking me. We're going to score these 2 at the 1/2 inch mark. And then on this next piece, I am scoring it on the 5.5 inch side down 1/2 inch. So I'm going to start with these 2. Tape, and you know the routine, miter. Oh no, you don't have to miter the corners here on any of these because really they're not from side to side. I'm just going to clean up my tape, and when I clean up the tape, I usually just take off a little bit of the cardstock just to make everything even if it needs to be. So what I'm going to do first is put these 2 together, which is just on top of each other. For some reason, one looks bigger than the other. Wider. And I put it down. Nope. Okay. No matter how perfect I think I cut things. So what I'm going to do, because I don't want to cut this whole length, but it bugs me when my sides, so I'm just going to trim that. Just miter it in a little bit so that those two guys are even, and then the rest will be just fine. Now, make sure that's down. Now you may have wanted to miter the inside, but it's not super critical. So this is going at the top. Before I do that, because I am adding, so you don't have to add this extra flap. Again, being a wedding album, I know that, you know, the bride's going to want more room. And then I'm trying to give a little bit of a dimensional look here. So that looks great to me. And I'm going to just take the whole thing off this time. Going at the top. And like I mentioned, you can stop here, add your magnets, and then that's what I did on the other album. And the beauty of this is you can actually add more of these flaps. You can keep going if you like. You can add as many on top of each other as you like. And then again, this will go down at the bottom. And I'm somewhat off-centering it. Sorry, I need a drink. And I'm just going to remove the whole score tape because I'm not worried about matching it side to side. But I do need a magnet. But once again, I'm just going to use one magnet. That was the negative side. So my first magnet will be, of course, the first flap. Now, one thing that I do want to see with this, because we are looking at a few more layers, just put that in there and let it grab. Does it feel tight enough? It does through all of that. Okay. So I'm just going to open all my flaps. Make sure everything will stay down. Close those two. Grabs hold great, so I know it's going to hold. And because I use the large ones, I can get by with just one magnet. Now our back again, so we have our pull-out mat. And for this one, actually, it's very simple, but I think it's the paper that just really gave this one the personality. So it'll fit inside your pocket, and then it will give us some room for my baby wallets. But this one I had accidentally cut too short, so I am going to make this wider. I want some more room, being that it, of course, is wedding. So again, 6.5 by 7 3/4. then you have, we have these pieces. And you should have possibly another one from that, the other one we cut, the flap, depending on how you cut it. And it is actually 5.5, which is fine. Like I said, I want it to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to cut these two down to 7 3/4. Oh, yeah, because it does. See, one was that shorter than the other. So 7 3/4. And then also you have a great mat. Now, one thing too about the reason my mats are only 6.5 long, you know, I don't want them to go, I don't want to chance them, I could make them last, but you've got a hinge going in there, and you could actually make them probably 7, but also I just wanted not to take the chance, and I wanted the 6.5 by 7 3/4 for the 5 by 7 photos, so that there was actually a method to my madness. I'm going to score 1/2 inch on each 2 pieces. Now, before I put them down, I do want to check. I like when I'm doing this kind, I like there to be a little bit of the paper showing, because it also lets the recipient know, hey, that will open. That's why I like that lip there. I call it a showy lip. And it looks really, I think it looks nice, especially when you're using the coordinating papers together. But I don't want too much. So this first one will go like this. No, this one will go like this. This one will go like this. So putting them together, yeah, that's what I was afraid. I'm going to cut down, see how they're pretty well perfectly matched. So I'm going to take about 1/4 inch off of the top piece. Then when I put it down, or you can even wrap it, just to get the look. Going open great. So let's start with the bottom. We're going to put it together just like we did before. Miter my corners. Everything is lined up. Now, let me tell you, if you want to, it doesn't matter. You can put it on top. You can wrap it. Some crafters do like to take it to the back. You still want to make sure that, let me show you. You're going to put it over like that. You want to make sure that you miter your corners. And I'm going to show you this way just in case you do. You just want to put the tape on the inside. Line everything up. Then I turn mine over after I get it lined up. Push it in. So that's how you do it from behind. But see, this is a risk you take if you're me. Yep, you get it off centered. then you have to fix it. And I'm not worried because when I put my paper on top of there, it will take care of that. So there we have this one. And again, we're going to want a magnet. And it does take about a package of the magnets. If you're going to use your large, you'll want a whole package. And it will take a whole package if you're using the Carta Bella cardstock. And that will include your cover. Now for this one, I'm not using the magnets for the cover. I'm going to show you how I did the tie. And I did that on the wrong side because I'm busy talking. Let's take that off. Wow, that one really stuck. Sorry, it needs to go on the back side. And just because it brought up a little bit of the paper, I'm going to put just a touch of glossy accents. And yes, I finally did get my fine line applicator, so you don't have to listen to me cleaning off my glossy accent tube anymore. There we have that one. And we can just put that right inside our it goes. That goes that way. What on earth did I do, guys? Oh, well, it's okay. You can put, I put it, okay. See what I did here? Again. Wow. That would work, but then it's got even more to go through. So, let's try one more time. There we go. That holds much better. There we go. So there's that page. Let me get my pages all together. Let's see. So there's 1, 2. That one's going to go that way. Love it, but it goes this way. Then we have this one. Now our next one, we have a pocket, which again is cut. And I used the 4-inch piece, and I cut it by, because our page is 9, so I cut it 8 7/8, excuse me. Everything's coming in bloom, including the allergies. Again, for our pocket, then we want our 3-sided scoring, and on this one, I am going to do my decorative punch. So I'm just going to grab that. And I'll use this one by Martha Stewart. It's a little more wedding. Hold up our corners so we can check our match to the page. Because it's going this way. We're not putting it down at the bottom, we're putting it side. 4 tape, and again we'll be mitering all those corners. Now for the top one, I will be mitering doing the, you know, almost straight down 90 degrees. I like it to be a lot deeper so that when this folds over, it doesn't interfere with that design. Again, miter our corners. Okay, now this will go over on the left hand side, my hinge side. Up just to here. Sometimes it likes to just grab a hold. There we go. Now see, if you come up and it's driving you nuts and it's a little short, you still have time too where you don't have it down. You can kind of, there you go, push that fold out just a little bit. Now, I won't be putting this down right now, but in the other album, also it makes extra space because it's always nice to add this decoration. This was a 3x4 card, so I did already cut my other 4x6 piece, but it doesn't go down until everything's been matted. Then I will mat this and put it right on top, and it will hold in all my mats. So for right now, I'll just put that in the pocket so I don't lose it. Then for our back side, again, this was a little shorter, so well, I did on this one, I just did my flap and then the double belly band, which I thought turned out really cute, and it does give you quite a bit of room in there. So if you want to even add more tags, you could get 3 good tags behind there and then here, which again, wedding album, I will. So let's cut our base 6.5, and then for this one, it was a 4.5 inch piece, and I think I have a 5-inch piece that I'll probably go just a little bit bigger. So just a 1/2 inch bigger. So I really, yeah, encourage you just to use your scraps when it comes to your flaps. So I'm going to cut my first page, my first one at 6.5. Sorry, I'm just putting a flap back in so I don't damage it or lose it. And of course it doesn't want to go back in. There we go. All right, 6.5 by 7 3/4. Then I'll go ahead and cut this piece down to 7 3/4. And you'll have plenty of pieces to use for your belly bands. So we're going to go ahead and score at 1/2 inch. Same technique. Just want to make sure we're good. Don't know what to do about this cutter. Darn thing was $100, and I'll tell you, it should be cutting as good as my other one. I'll miter my corners. And for the belly band, so you'll just need to measure and add an inch. So I'm going to go 5.5 because I have to score 1/2 inch on each side. And let me see in my scraps here. Doesn't look like I have any small enough, so I'm going to be cutting them because I want two. I want one a little bit wider than the other. I think I'll do my first one at 5.5 by 3. And then I'll cut another one that's 5.5 by 2. What, I cut that 5.5? I didn't cut it 5.5. There we go. So laying it out, then that will be my one on top. And you know, you can even go as far as putting a third belly band if you like. You can put as many as you like. So let's go ahead and score on each end of both of them. Just score your 1/2 inch. And again, your 1/2 inch. Over, make sure, yay, let's make sure here, and I'm not really looking for, you know, the complete middle, but I know that this is 3 inches, and I do want it somewhat centered, so I am going to just make a little mark. I like it at about 2 3/8 is where I want the bottom to be. And you don't have to miter these corners for your belly band. Up. I know that's not scored straight because it's not sitting straight. It's just on that edge. And remember, this is paper, so you need to tell it what you want it to do. Okay. And if you've watched enough of my videos, Bless you for one thing, because I know there's times, I'm sure it's been hard. But I don't really tear it off and waste it, because you can make it work. It will work. Just takes a little re-finagling of the paper is all. Once again, I'm going to just somewhat eyeball my center one from top to bottom. Okay, so there's our belly band. And once again, plenty of scraps that will fit. So let me go ahead and cut this at 7.5. And let me grab my other, this is the punch I used. And I've had it forever. I don't know where I got it. And that's what I use to make this. Or you can use your die cuts, which have this really nice die cut machine, but do you think I use it? Once in a while. Try and center, cut. And again, because it's a wedding, do the deco ends. Now this one goes more top to bottom than this one. This was a shorter one. And then for the center here, I'll be using probably some of the cutouts. I don't know yet. So I'm just going to put a piece in there of my scraps so I have it. And let's go ahead and grab our page. Page is buried. So it's the page with the pocket, and this is going to go on the opposite side. Okay, let's get it lined up in there. And magnet. And that is the end for this pack. And that's okay, because our last page I did a full-size mat, which I will do for this one. And there we go. So there's our 4th page. And let me put that over in the pile. Put this one back. Here we have 2 more of the flaps. And then we have a piece that opens with the 2 pockets on the inside. So again, just grab your scraps. Now, for this one, I had done 2 of them the exact same size, and I overlapped. And I'm thinking, for this one being a wedding, I'm going to do something a little different. So if you're wanting to do those overlapping flaps, cut 2 of them exact same size, the length that you want, so you can even adjust it. So this one is 6.5 by 4 1/4. So I would take 2 of them 6.5 by 4 1/4. I'm going to overlap them. For this album, I want to do something a little different. I'm going to have believe, 3 graduating layers of flaps. So my first one's 4 1/4. These I think are just 4 inches. So I'm going to cut them. This one's 6 1/2. I'm going to cut this one down to 6. Oops, let me put that in 1 inch. Then I'd like to show that up there at the 1/2. I'm going to take my next one. I'm losing some of my markings. I'm going to go 7 on this one. The reason I'm putting it up over the page is that's my 1/2 inch. So I'm going to do this one at 8. And that is what my page will look like. I think it'll be gorgeous. Wedding cake, the toast, maybe the family and bridesmaids, and you lift it up, and then there's, you know, the whole reception. This one, I'm going to go ahead and cut it all the way to 4. I don't want it to be wider. Okay, let's score. If you're doing it just the 2 flaps overlapping, go ahead and score at 1/2 inch on each one. Put your first one down. I went in an inch, and then the other one I just overlapped. And we're basically going to do the same things. We're going to do 1/2 on the top of all 3. Of course, our longest one to the right. The next. So this is what I have to decide, because we have to start with the longest one first. And it looks like we are going to go side by side, so up. Okay. I've done this before and I need to double check. Sorry about all my double checking. So I'm going to start with my longest one first if you're doing it this way. Miter my corner on the outside edge. And I'm just going to match edge to edge on this one. This is where, see, I've done this before and I messed this up. These have to be, what I'm trying to bring back to my brain here is that you can't have them on top or they don't lift. So I did not push that down. I'm going to start over to the right hand side. Now on my outside corner again, I'm going to miter. So when I'm doing this, as you notice, I'm not pushing them down so that I can remove them quite easily. Okay, you do have to start on this side. Then we'll open it. Place this one. So that will be fine. I'm going to make a mark. And match that there and match it with the top. Just turn this around so I can put this one back down. You don't want to go over that score line. There. Now, this one, I want to be able to not use a lot of magnets. And I don't think there's going to be a way around it unless I have a piece that would cover to hold them all down, which I don't really want to do. So this is going to be one of those pages where I don't have much of a choice. I'm going to go ahead with the 3 magnets, and I'm going to use the small one since each one, oh, they're so hard to get out sometimes. Each one will have its own magnet. No, they don't have to. Okay. But I'm going to start here on my small. We're going to go underneath and attach it to the base page. Okay. So then we just need one on this last page. And I'm debating, just to help some extra coverage on top, I think I will add it to that middle flap. These want to stick to me. Okay. There we go. Like I said, that I think that's going to look really nice with the wedding pictures in there. Okay, now for this one, I goofed. No, I didn't. I think we can still do it. So, hold on here. Yeah. I did goof, so please don't kill me. We're going to have to do a little bit of a change. Okay, I know what we'll do. Okay, I really liked that waterfall effect and I wasn't even thinking. We should have built the waterfall on top of this shorter piece that became this, because I do want this still. But let me pull him, try not to. On this page where I did this, it really did make for the page to be very thick. So I'm going to take the opportunity to use my back cover, and what we're going to do is we'll do this a little different. So instead of just one flap, we're going to make it longer, and we're going to have the pockets on the inside here on our back cover. So that will work. Now, I have not cut these. I'm going to cut them, and then I will be back and give you the measurements for our waterfall cascading page that will go on the back. Now, if for some reason you want to go ahead and do it like I did in the book, okay, let's remove those. And actually, I should have had that cut, so I didn't make this error, but this was that page we made on camera, so I didn't have it cut. Go ahead and cut. You want to cut a page that is 8 inches by your 8 inches. You're going to score it at a half, so it's only 7. That brings it down to 7.5. So when you open it, and you'll adhere it here, when you open it, then you can put your pockets on the inside. Then you can put this on top of that folded, that flat piece. So see, this was put on top of this flap. That was the 8 by 8, and then when I scored it, it became 7.5 to give us that little bit of a lip there. And then I was able to build the pockets, and we're still going to build the pockets on the back cover. And this is the one that just has the photo mat. Because we won't be able to do a fold over with this cascading page here. So I will get that cut and set this aside, and I shall return with those measurements and with the pages cut. Okay, we are back to finish this last page. I went ahead and got mine cut. So your first one is going to be 6.5 by 8. Again, I cut it just that minuscule tiny bit shorter than 8 so that you know it's going to match up. Score it 1/2, and I've already placed down my score tape. Then I cut the next one. Oops, let me move those over. At 6 by 8, scored at 1/2 inch, scored tape. Our next one is 5.5 by 8, scored at 1/2, scored tape. And again, 5 by 8, scored at 1/2 inch, and scored tape. Now, before I put these down, I just want to kind of line them up with each other and make sure they're all the same length. That one isn't longer than the other. So let me grab my sheet. Remember, it's the one where I did the 3 cascading. You want to turn it over, hinges right to left. Yes, I've already had a boo-boo. And we are going to start with the smallest one. And I did miter the corners. Now this is just like putting down a waterfall. And this is very similar, smaller version of how I make those albums I do that are hingeless. I do the whole album this way, and I don't use hinges. They're kind of fun. And I do have to pick this up to see I'm looking a little bit like it's just fine. Always looks different at a different angle, of course. Ah, that came up. Oh, and I also cut, this was just a scrap, 3 inches. This is right now 8 inches because I don't, no, I will adjust it after we get all of our pages on. 1/2 inch score mark, and then the score tape. Oh, see, I work with mine kind of backwards. So it's going to go down just like a waterfall. So we'll start with the smallest. Then we're going to move on to the next size. And I did tell you wrong. Oh, I didn't mean to tell you to miter your corners. Okay. If you did, you're okay. I did this in the other one too. And I just made my strips longer to cover it. I goofed, yeah. Oh, I apologize. Yeah, it's not a real big deal. You can cover it. Because I cover the insides anyway, and I'll just take a piece, I'll just take my paper longer when I do my inside hinges. When I cover that little flap there. So then we just keep going down to our cascading sizes. Matching top to bottom. Now when I get to about this third sheet, I like to see where I'm at, make sure everything looks pretty much straight. And then the last one. Now on my last one, I'm going to go ahead and take off my score tape because I started this. Luckily, I was able to redo the video part. I just didn't save it. And what I did is I put my big one down first instead of my small one. And so I brought it up, and that's why. Let me clean this up a little bit. Okay. So when I remove the score tape completely, I'm just keeping my fingers back there, making sure. Okay, let's close our pages. Now you can see how I mentioned that it made for a really thick page when I put the other page in here. So I'm kind of glad I didn't. And I'm going to put it over on the back cover. So now let's go ahead and put our flap down and look and see how long you want it. And I'm just kind of comparing it. And you know what? I'm going to take about an inch off. So this is, now I'm going to take I'm going to take a full inch off. Because then I will also again use one of the cutouts that I did before on that one. Now I'm going to find my center on here just a little bit more so that it is in the center. And then this will be 1.5. And I'll just line those two up. I will be opening another pack of magnets because I do want the large magnet, but I won't open them right now. So I want the large magnet, and it will just go on here, and actually it's just going to go down. Now sometimes, let me tell you what I do, because you've got a lot of layers, so I might even stick it under the second or so page, and it will give that extra holding power by pulling it down. And then I'm going to go ahead with this and deco my edges, my corners. And there you have even more space. And look how easy that was. And this is actually quite an easy page construction of the album. It's when you get into matting your pages that you can really make it look like it was a lot of work. Well, matting to me is a lot more work than the construction itself. So let me go ahead and grab all of our pages. So it actually goes this way. There's no magnet there, so Everything wants to fly out, so it's this way. There we go. So there you have your 5 pages. All the magnets are, we have the 5 pages made. And what we have to do now is our cover. So, and I showed you there was just a few variations from this one. And I'll do this in another album because I'll show you how we split the paper. Or you may already know. We did this. I just added that extra flap on the bottom. We have our side pocket. This is where I did my 3 cascading, and I'm going to do this on the back cover with you. And we have our cascading page here. So now you're going to want to cut your chipboard. And what I do is I always cut mine a 1/2 inch bigger than my sheets in length and width. So you're going to cut 2 pieces of chipboard that is 8.5 by 8.5, 2 of those. And for our spines, because we are going to do 1/2 inch, I'm going to do 1/2 inch. And so, how do you lose a huge ruler? Then on my side pieces, so you need 2 pieces that are 3 inches wide by 8 inches long. So we have 8.5 by 3. So we have 2 8.5 by 8.5 pieces. We have 2 3 by 8.5 pieces. So we need our back piece where we're putting our hinges. Then this one for my flap, it's 4 inches by 8.5 inches. Now you can adjust this if you don't want that much fold over. You can go 3. You really can't go any shorter than 3, or you're going to risk not having enough space there. So 4 by 8.5, 2 3 by 8.5, 2 8.5 by 8.5. So if you get those cut, then we'll be able to make our cover, but we want to do our hinges first. So you'll want to cut a sheet of paper of your cardstock that matches. And I cut my cardstock that 1/8 of an inch shorter than my pages, so that it just slides in and I don't have to miter them. And you're going to just cut, you're going to cut it down to 7 7/8 and leave it at 12 inches. We'll trim it after we make our hinges. So I'll be back. Let me get my paper cut and we will get all started on our hinge and on our cover construction. Okay, I have my chipboard cut, and then I did cut, this time of the night we get those lines. I apologize. I did get my cardstock cut. So the cover chipboard is 8.5. So I cut my cardstock at 10.5. I see those lines and I apologize. I'm sure you're seeing them too. All right, let's try that. We will have some shadows and I'll have to turn it on and off for me to see. It's the light. So I think that'll help on your end. Now what I did is I went ahead, and I'll have to add more. I used my 1/4 inch score tape. And we're going to just start with these 2 pieces. Because when I overlap, I want to make sure everything's tight, you know, and laying down flat. So I put it on the edge of this one and this one. And for this cover, you're going to need the 3 pieces. You'll have some that will cut off. Now you're going to just match it to the top. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect for this. It's a really good thing because it just sucks it down sometimes. There we go. Okay. I just want to make sure it's down. Now we need to put score tape on this end. And then I put another piece here. Now I don't use any bigger than the 1/4 inch. I have found that when I go to turn it, I have a little bit of problems when I turn it over the chipboard. I sometimes get a little bit, even with the Carta Bella, some popping and cracking at this seam because we have that extra layer of paper there. So there's not really a lot that can be done. So the first thing, before I even put any tape down, and I know you're probably might be having issues to see, I've got the white background. I lay out my chipboard, and then I do use these 8.5 by 11 inch sheets from Score Tape. Love it. Saves my rolls. They're $1.85 in the store at countrycraftcreations.com. But let me tell you, if you make a lot of albums, this is the way to go, because it could take a full roll of your tape to make the cover. And with this, it's just one sheet. Well, this one will take 2 sheets and a little extra. And it's just, I love it. Okay, I also did, remember the flap I talked about, the other album was 4 inches. I cut this down to 3.5 so I could get a little more decoration on the cover. This is our main flap. Now what we want to do is, we're going to lay out a spine here. I always do it right there. Actually, you know, I might change this one up. And this chipboard, I didn't have to cut too much. It was the 8.5 by 11 chipboard. And I'm starting to carry it in the store because I love the 8.5 by 11. There's just less waste. So I'm going to put the spine there. And I think for this one, that's what I'm going to do. Maybe. It'll just depend on our space. Okay, and it's not going to work. So it looks like our first one will have to be on the spine. This one is a little bit more tricky to lay out. And I'm actually going to lay it out somewhat backwards. Thinking if we lay it out backwards, yes. Then we can get, I'm trying to get my creases on these bigger chipboard pieces because we're going to completely cover them with paper and not on my spines. But I'm having to double check my orientation here. So let me turn my album upside down because I don't want to lay this out wrong, which yes, I thought so. I am laying it out wrong. And it doesn't matter how many times you make an album. We always forget somewhere. I make so many different album covers. Okay, so this is the main flap. This is the flap that's your fold over. Then we have that spine piece. Then here we have one of the cover pieces. And the main thing is at this end, I want to make sure I have 1 inch. So I'm going to just keep scooting things down and around. And on this very last one, it's not quite in the middle, but it's fine. So once again, I'm just going to recheck this orientation to my actual album, just for safety. We're good. When you make so many different album, I do the side flaps, I do the top flap over. I have to do this. Okay, So actually I'm going to start here with this one, with my biggest middle piece. And I'm just going to take my pencil and put a mark where I want this edge to start, so I can just push these guys away. That's just so I know where my starting point is. And then I'm going to be using my ruler. And I'll tell you, I love my Tim Holtz ruler, but I love my quilting ruler even better. It just has a lot more markings, so I want to make sure I have an inch at the top and bottom. And and it's actually easier to leverage your weight on so that you can hold it straight if you're really trying to get your album cover straight. And I'm going to start with my 8.5 by 11 that I've already cut down, and the pieces, I will use my pieces on the spines. But look at that, isn't that great? And then you've got such holding power, these sheets. Now with the bigger sheets, just make sure you do burnish it, because you are working with such a large surface. Okay. And the corner here. And it is extremely sticky. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and put my ruler. I like it. Like I said, I can use my arm to stabilize it. And I know I wanted to start right there. So I'm going to keep my fingers back there till I know exactly where I want it. Check my spacing at the bottom. Since I cut my paper up just 2 inches, I know that I have an inch at the top and bottom and won't have to trim like I used to do. Okay. There, now it's no problem when we go from here. Because I use my 1/4 inch score tape, been doing this one for years when I was just so fed up with my covers cracking. This just is a great reminder to keep everything evenly spaced. I used to do the, two chipboard rule, and I still would get cracking. And that's when I started using this. So the next one will be our it should be about 3-inch piece. And this was the piece that I cut off of that 8.5 by 11 for my big ones. And it doesn't have to go side by side because we are covering such a large surface. Isn't that just slick? And it does. It'll wrinkle up because like I said, you're working with a bigger piece, but it'll smooth out. And I'm going to take the score tape off the back. Now, you can leave it on and take these all off after. I just do it now, and then I'm just going to butt it. Make sure it's right on that. See the edge of the score tape. So leaving it on too, if it's easier for you to work with. And when I do have some white chipboard I use. And when I use white, I do leave it on. It makes it easier to see. So once again, I'm going to use my spacer. And I've got some score tape that's sticking on. I'll just get rid of that so I don't have any issues. Okay. I'm just going to hold my arm down on there so it's nice and firm, and I can lay this down perfectly from top to bottom. This chipboard is doing some funny shredding up there. Okay, these two pieces. Like I said, this is a really long piece. score tape again. And now for my 4-inch piece, I do have another one of the pieces, but I want to save it for my other spine. So with my newer sheet, I am going to have to cut with my cutter a piece for it. And then I'll just set this aside because I'll use it for another album. Oh, 3.5. Whoops, I forgot I shortened mine. And I do keep all these pieces that were cut off because they're usable. Let's remove. My ruler down, my arm on there. You can just use your hand, whichever. Line that up at the edge of my 1/4-inch score tape. And then we'll move down. So I already have the 1/4-inch score tape here. It's fine. We'll go next. And do you see how much faster it goes using it? I love this. Just love these sheets. And I do have the 6x6 sheets also. They're wonderful if you're making 6x6 albums, and they come 4 in a pack or 5 in a package. Wonderful if you're doing 6x6 albums. But this does speed up the process. And like I said, when you're making a lot of albums, or if you're doing orders, you know, your time's important so that you can move on. Okay. Just gonna lean on there. No worrying about top to bottom because I know my ruler's taking care of it. And my last 1/4-inch. And I know it speeds it up in videos, which I'm sure you appreciate. Okay, put this up here. Now there we have all of our pieces. One thing that I do want to do is, I want to grab my mat. I'm not going to put it in my cutter this time. I'm just going to use my blade and my ruler. And I'm going to cut it off just 1 inch. well, it's too long. Can't get it to lay flat. Okay. Let me see something. I think I did. I was laying it wrong. That's okay. I'm going to just... Mine's a little off because I was using the wrong measurement on my ruler, of course. Right top's going to be just a hair longer than the bottom, which is fine. So I'll take that off. Use that for my mats. Turn this over. Just trim both sides. And there we have the beginning of our cover. Now I'm just going over the back side lightly with the flat side of my bone folder. Okay, we'll get ready and we'll fold it. I just have to grab my other score tapes and I will be right back. Okay. Move everything so I don't have an accidentally turn off my camera. I need lots of room. So I'm going to use my 1/2" score tape, and I just overlap mine a little bit because we're going to be cutting those corners off. So I use my 1/2" around the perimeter. Then I'll use my 1/4" on the inside. The 1/4" is just to fill in that extra space. So when we fold when we fold our cardstock, we know it's going to be completely covered. And I do use the 1/2" on the inside when I cover it, again with more of my cardstock. Now the reason I covered the inside and outside with cardstock and then put the matching, I mat it. By adding this extra cardstock, it actually adds durability and strength. So you can either double your cardstock and then just use your pattern paper. And as we know, we don't know if our pattern paper is going to crack. And then it's very frustrating. And then we don't have that double layer now of cardstock, which does add to the strength. Okay, so if you've watched my other videos, I've showed you different ways to cut your corners. So I'm just going to go ahead and I just cut mine. You know, I show in all my other videos when doing covers how you can fold it over to get your measurement. Sometimes I will, just to double check where that line is. Most of the time I just eyeball. Now, one thing I'm going to do with this Carta Bella is on where I've joined my cardstock together, I'm really going to go over that with this pointy part of my bone folder. And I don't know if you can do this with your other cardstock, but I know I can with Carta Bella, just to help when it comes to bending it over. It's right there. Sometimes it's hard to see. So I'm going over it quite a few times. And then this just helps kind of score. Then let's push against our chipboard. So I'm just breaking those fibers, doing some pre-bending. Oops, we got some score tape there, so that hopefully things will bend nice. Okay, now I'm going to take off all of the backing of my score tape. That's right. That was my broken piece. Okay, I'm going to start at the top. And when I bring my cardstock over my chipboard, I do a downward pull motion to make sure there's no space between the cardstock and the chipboard. I'm just using my hands. Now I won't use this. This is a really pretty bone folder when it's new, but you'll find these little diamonds get in your way. So I have a couple of these nice flat ones. That I just run along. Turn it over and let's do the other side. Sticky. Okay, let's do our ends. So you are going to need to push that right over your chipboard. Just kind of push that corner in. And then push that right over. Turn around. I'm going to do the same thing. Flatten it out good. Okay. I'll go over all your edges. Turn it around. So I'm going to start back here, and I do show in other videos, I have a favorite pen and it has this rounded bottom. So if you don't have one of these bone folders, because you'll see how it graduates and gets fatter at the end, this thing works fantastic. And I did pick this up at Joann's. Now see, with that space, you should be able to bend your cover over in this process without it breaking, cracking, tearing. Of course, that does depend on your cardstock, but it shouldn't matter with this spacing. So you want to push that down in. And that score tape helps to grab this layer, top layer of paper, and hold it nice and tight. And go ahead and lift up a little bit if it needs help. And then my last piece. It's puckering a little bit. There we go. So right now it's pretty flimsy, but you should be able to bring it together. And you have a really nice album cover. Now you have a seam there, but it's going to be covered. But see how nice your ends are? When you can manipulate and put your cardstock like that, I like to do it. Now I'm going to start with this flat piece to my left, because also, again, I'm trying to work getting no seams here in the front on these smaller pieces, and you don't want seams in your creases. So our album is 8.5. So I'm going to cut my first sheet of paper just 1/8 of an inch shorter than the cover. That's my preference. If you want even less of a border, you can, just cut it 1/16, but you will have to cut it just a little bit shorter, of course. So it looks like I'm going to start cutting 2 pieces for my cover, because that other piece that we had cut off, I think will be enough for what we're doing. And it's pretty important that you cut your papers the same size. So I like to match them, make sure one's not bigger than the other. So like I mentioned, you'll see, let me pull this down. Do you see how that would happen to hit in the seam? So definitely I can't do it that way. Nope, I'm going to start down at this end. So on this one, I'm not too worried. I'm just going to go ahead and piece it because we are covering the back up quite a bit. Sometimes I like to get my seams in the middle, or maybe where our hinges will go. But see, you want your papers exactly the same. Not matching up too great here. I know this is the parts on my videos. You're welcome. You need to probably fast forward because, and see that last piece, it's going to work great. I like to lay out a lot. Oh, this darn cutter. No, I still haven't called the company and I need to. Try it again. If I can clean that edge up. Oh. That's going to fit perfect. So I'm going to use my score tape, my 1/2 inch, and I'll be right back. Okay, for our hinge, I cut my paper 7 and 7/8. Let me double check here. Let me grab a page. Make sure it's going to fit. Nope, I cut mine too short. Actually, it was a spare piece and I should have checked. So our pages are 8, so we're going to cut it at 7 7/8. Okay, let me put that one aside. I'll use it for another book. So our pages are 8 by 8. Okay, move this. We're going to need the whole thing. So I cut it at 7 7/8. And what I did, I'm just going to use this one as for my scoring purposes. And then I'll go back. I scored it 1 1/4, 1 1/2. Then I went 2, 2 1/2, 3, 3 1/2, 4, 4 1/2, 5, 5 1/2, 6, 6 1/2, 7, 7 1/2, 8, 8 1/2, and 8 3/4. I like to start and end with the 3/4. So while you're scoring, let me go ahead and rescore my piece. So 1 1/4, 1 1/2, and we're just going to score the 1/2 inch all the way down to 8 1/2. And if you happen to do a hinge and it's not the right size, like I did that one, don't throw it away. I know that I will be making some 5 by 7 albums, and I will just cut that down for my 7-inch pages at 6 7/8, so they'll be perfect. So you don't ever want to throw those away. Whoops. Oh, 8 1/2 and 8 3/4. Let me just clean that up where I slipped. And I do a video. I have tutorials on how to make covers for any size albums and how to make hinges for any size. So you can always refer back to those videos because they're available on my YouTube. And I just explain to you how to make a hinge for any size album. You can make a hinge for a 2x2 album to a basically with this style, and your pages are only 12 inches. I've never gone bigger than 11 inches. So now what I'm doing is I'm just folding, and I'm going to leave a 1/2 inch here, and I'm going to grab the next middle. And I like to just push it back on my folds to get my hinges. Then I'll move to the next one. Make sure you skip because you need that gusset. Now if you didn't skip, it's okay. You didn't fold it wrong. Just refold. Then they have the space. So like I said, I started with a 1/4 inch and I ended with a 1/4 inch. I like to wrap mine for straight. So now I'm just going to check everything. Checking that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hinges. So let's turn it over. And I skip. This is just how I do it. You don't have to. You can always start here. I do 2 rows. This is just my visual comfort level. So I have the 2 rows of 3/8 of an inch core tape because these are 1/2 inch gussets. And I pretty much, sometimes I'll do the 3/8 in maybe a smaller album, say my 5x7. But when it comes to wedding albums or larger albums, you know you're going to be decorating or putting in a lot of tags, and you do already have a lot of bulkiness from those inserts we built. So it's best really to just go with your 1/2 inch, and then you don't have one of those albums that are you know, busting at the seams. Now on these 2 ends I just put my 1/4 inch core tape. It's always nicer to have an album that will close. Now I'm just going to clean up where my score tape is too long. And it's going to stick all over. Okay. This end will be too long, but we won't cut it till the end, very end. Okay, so now you've got these 2. I'm only taking off the first one and then every other one thereafter. So it looks like this. Now we're just going to start pushing things together. And it will be sticky if you're using score tape. Oops, not my scissors. One thing to look for when you're putting your hinges together, that it's looking pretty straight, asymmetrical, that it is lined up, that it's not going off cattywampus. If it does, you should be able to just pull and tug a little bit and then burnish. Then I like to turn mine over and do the same. Put my hinges over. I like to get them worked a little bit before it even goes into the book. Now, one thing you need to decide, are you going to pattern, do you want to do pattern paper on here? Now on this one I did pattern paper before I put my hinge down. I don't always do that. And so you need to kind of decide if you are going to put your pattern paper down. You don't want to, you know, put this down, of course, until you're at that point. So now I'm going to go ahead and fold this. Now make sure you're pushing back so that you have that lip. It's just kind of the beginning of your page. Let me show you. So see how you'll have your page sitting there? Okay. This piece is going to be too long. We already knew that. So make sure you've got your, there you go, 1/4 inch there. Not going to be an exact science. You're just going to push it over. Make a mark. And I'm going to cut that off. And I'm going to cut it a little bit shorter on the inside of that. So I can see. I may have to cut a little bit more. Yeah, because you don't want it to hang over at all. So there we go. So what I'm going to do is the big one I put down first. And then on the smaller end, or actually it doesn't matter, you can put down either one. So add a little reinforcement here. Once again, clean up that edge that's hanging over. And I'm just pushing those flat. It's just easier to work with. And I'm going to remove all the backing. All except for those two pieces I just put down. So at the 1/4 inch, that's where I'm going to go till. Now push back so that you get that 1/4 inch. Mine got off just a little bit, which is normal. I'm just going to trim it so it's even with my hinges. Now I don't like to miter my hinges. I like my pages to go straight on, and so cutting it at the 7 7/8 makes it so we don't have to do that. Okay. So now let's bring it to the front. Take a look. A couple ways. So I have that one piece of core tape, you know, my sheet that I cut, and it's hiding. Oh no, it's not. Here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it to 8 1/2. So my hinge is almost 2 3/4. too long. No, our pages are 8. I'm thinking of the cover. And I'm going to make it just a little bit shorter. Because you definitely don't want, if you're using the sheets, anything to hang over. There we go. Reason that wants to come. There we go. Wow, I'm not getting that on straight. There we go. Now, with my 1/2-inch hinges, pages are bigger. These pages are heavier. I am going to use my 3/8 of an inch score tape. And I like to put mine, this is just from what I've been doing, closer to the top. And I am only going to do the first one. So that's what I do. I have allergies and my eyes are driving me crazy, itchy, so I don't want to get the rest of them crooked. And that's what I do. I'm going to put it right towards the top. So when my page sits down, I won't have any chance of my score tape showing. Now is the time that you can decide, do I want to go ahead and put my hinge down right on here? Do I want pattern paper? Now there's a couple of other things to consider. Now see your hinge. Your hinge is wider, which is on purpose with this book. I mean your hinge, not your hinge, your spine, because you've got so much bulk. So I didn't want, just like on the other one, I don't want my hinge side to side because I'm going to be hitting things in those pages, especially that back page where we did all those flaps on the waterfall. You need that room. So another thing also, are you going to do any lace on your hinge? Sometimes when you're doing lace, I don't know if I can find an end on this one, I like to wrap it. Let me see. Here we go. So one thing, if you're going to, let me show you, if you want your lace to be wrapped, see, you're going to want to go ahead and mat the back side first, and then mat this, put your hinge down, and with your pattern paper on top. And that does give a little bit more of a finished look on the outside. So that's one thing you need to consider also. And I know on this one, I am going to be wrapping my lace because I'm going to be doing multiple layers on the outside of this wedding album. So I will wait until I put some matting on the outside, and this will be the last thing to do. So I'll just set this aside. Now, if you're not going to wrap your lace and you're not worried about the inside being covered with your pattern paper, then you can go ahead, take the back off of your score tape or whatever you're using and center it. You might want to use a ruler to kind of get it in the center and then adhere it down. So at this point, like I said, I like to do the matting of my pages first. After I mat my pages, and as you're taking, I'll take that. So as you're matting your page, after you mat your pages, what you want to do, I start in the back with my last page. This isn't the last page, but we'll pretend it is. Then I remove my score tape. I make sure that this fits first, actually. Then I remove my score tape. Like I said, my eyes are driving me crazy right now because of the allergies. I've got one eye just itching. I can't quite see. Anyway, I push it down. Now I put it on. I lay my page flat. Then I push it shut. I mean, push it down. Now, as you can see, there's no wiggle room. because we didn't miter our corners. So our page fits on here almost perfect. And when you lay it flat and push it down, you've given it the imprint of your pages need to lay down. Then I push it back over, pushing on my hinges. That won't come up like that because the other side would be attached. And I do the same. Again, you've got your pages already in the habit, and you've played with your hinges enough that, see, it'll lay down. So that's what I do with my hinges. That's how I put my books together, and I do have other tutorials. In fact, the last tutorial I did on my baby album, I show this technique, and I showed, but it's all decorated. Like I said, I'm not going to go through the matting process of this one because it makes the videos very long. Then I'll mat everything. I'll come back and I will do my finished video for you. And I can't wait to show you. And in the finished video, I am using printouts that I have found that were free to print because they're very old images. And I'll be linking those for you so that you'll be able to use them if you're making the wedding album that I'm making using the Authentiques Faith line. So I hope this tutorial was helpful and I hope you enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed doing it with you. And I can't wait to see your finished album. So if you are on Facebook at the Scrapbookers of Country Craft Creations group, don't hesitate to share. Again, oh, I wanted to show you. Don't forget, you will, of course, be punching your holes again if you've already punched them. No big deal. Oh, I was going to show you. No, we're not done. Well, back up. I'm sorry. We need to do this since we're at the end. Okay. I almost signed off here. And this is kind of important. So if you're using seam binding or a ribbon that doesn't have a finished edge and you're wondering, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with these ends because I need them to go through the holes. Now you can purchase, I'm sure, some jewelry, and I'm sure there's something out there, but I would really like to use what's on hand. Okay, so I'm going to tie my bow. Now, I wouldn't do this part actually until I was completely done, so I'm only going to do these two because I'll be cutting them again. After I do my album, I will recut these to the size that I need, and I'll know more because my pages will be done and I'll know how much to tie it close. So I'm just going to grab a piece of this from my backing of score tape. What I like to do is take my Glossy Accents. Now, Glossy Accents, if you're not familiar, is an absolutely wonderful scrappers tool. That's what it looks like. Joann's, Amazon, you can get it. And I just make a pile of it like this. Now, your fingers are going to get messy. So take your ribbon or seam binding. Seam binding works really well for this because it pretty much has a memory and it sticks where I want it when I've wound it together. Now I've got my little bit of Glossy Accents, so I'm just going to roll it in there. Now that one went on really nice, so I'm happy with it. And you're going to need probably a piece of wax paper because you want to now lay it down to dry. Wax paper works great. Depending on how many pieces of ribbon you've put through, you may be only doing one. And again, we're going to put it back through our Glossy Accents. Now, I am going to take my fingers and I'm going to roll it together. We're going to do more than one coat here. Roll this one together and you will see you'll have some trimming, especially on the seam binding. Then you just trim it off. Set that one aside. Now you should feel it already getting a little tacky. And I did this 3 times. Time to set it aside. Then we do the next one. And let's do some rolling together. And it almost starts to look like little shoelaces. Like I said, it's messy. Cut off any strands. And then you can let this dry overnight. Okay, on this last coat, I'm not going to roll it. I'm just going to leave it. A little bit more. Make sure you don't have any too big of bubbles on the end. And I'm going to let that dry overnight. Now, when it dries, you'll be able to trim the ends again, and then if you need to, you can do a little bit more glossy accents. So that is how I did my ends. And actually, I'm just going to cut mine off because I know I won't be doing this because I will be cutting it. Now I want to show you real quick. Once my pattern paper is all done, don't do it with your ribbon in there, I will take my glossy accents. These are great for it. These bottles. There, I just got a tiny bit on the tip. And then I'm going to put it right there. And that's all there is to it. Make sure I've smushed it around those edges. And that's it. Then it seals that off a little bit, giving it more of a finished edge if you don't want to use, or if you don't have your longer eyelets, which I didn't have. So Glossy Accents put a nice finish on there, and I was very happy with it, and it just seals that paper down. So there we go. Now that is the end of making this album cover and the pages. And next time I see you with this album, I will be all matted, decorated, and I can't wait to see yours. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye. Okay, my cardstock is all ready. I went ahead with my score tape around the perimeter and then in the middle. And the reason I go this way is I don't want the chance of any score tape landing right there, because it will affect the way your pages bend. So let's go ahead. If you're just putting your score tape on, or your whichever adhesive you're using, I'm going to go ahead and remove the backing. And now this part, it's important that no score tape's hanging over your edges. Okay, so I'm starting over here on this fold over flap. Lining top to bottom. Making sure everything is down. Just over this quart tape. And when I was putting it down, I noticed I did get over the top here. Sometimes it's just really hard to see the light colors. There we go. And then again, make sure your edges are all cleaned up. all the backing is off. Now I'm going to overlap this, about an inch. And hopefully I can match my top and bottom. Looks like I did. So that they're pretty much even. Now for this last piece, I did not tape it down yet because I wanted to double check and see if I can clean up that edge just a little bit from the cutter. And once again, if you've watched a lot of my videos, you'll know that I have really no problems with my other cutter, just this Caterpillar. I know, I still have to call the company. And I'm going to trim this down just a hair, which is actually a good thing. Hope I got rid of that terrible edge. Okay, we can go ahead and score tape or put your adhesive down with this one. Even though I don't have a hinge to worry about, I still will keep my tape going in the same direction. No particular reason, just me. Okay, let's line it up. Sometimes just the angle you're going can cause that to be off. Mine is a little bit, but it'll be fine because we'll be covering it up pretty well, making that other pocket. Okay. Now, we need to find these folds. Now, you do want to be a little more careful when it comes to pushing in. You don't want to force it. You will go right through your paper, but encourage it to go inside that fold there so it grabs a hold of the score tape, or so the score tape grabs it. Now, at this point, you won't be able to bend this all the way over, which you don't want to. You would break your paper. Now, sometimes I do have to turn it over to find that other where it needs to bend, and then you'll have to maybe help the paper down a little bit more. Once it's there and you know it's smooth, then you can go ahead and bend it over, and you can see how much stronger your album has become. So now we have turn it around. So we have this one. And then I'm going to, I just noticed I need to get my edges down there a little bit better. There we go. Let's take backing. be gentle with it. Okay. Now you should be able to bend everything up. Now at this point, you will need to somewhat, you know, bend and shape your album and really help this little flap. And this is the point where if you want to go ahead and use magnets, you would put your magnets down, and I would use the big ones, but I'm going to use my cutter or my Crop-A-Dile because I want to do it just like I did the other one. Now you'll have to repunch these holes a couple of times because as you lay down your pattern paper, then you're going to punch them again. So if you want, you can actually wait and put down the back layer of pattern paper, then punch your hole. I'm going to go ahead and punch mine so I can show you in the video. So we need the holes here on this flap. We need the holes on this back cover. And the one thing is, let me think here. I'm going to have to go ahead and we'll have to do the inside so I can show you how to do those pockets. I'll have to go ahead and mat. So I'm going to go ahead and let's get these punched. What I want to do first is find the middle. So mine's 3.5. So 1 7/5. And I'm going to bring the ruler up a little bit so it'll be under where I'm going to cover it with paper. Going to make a little dot there, turn it around, and I'll do the same. So if you did the 4 inches, yours of course will be 2 inches. Then my Crop-A-Dile, so I'm going to use the Crop-A-Dile. What I've done is I brought my lever, this is your spacer, all the way to the bottom. And you will need something if you're using your Crop-A-Dile. And I don't know what other tool you may have, but if you're using a regular hole punch, I'm not really sure you're going to have good success. And then it looks like that is so if you're not using a Crop-A-Dile, you're going to go in just a little over an inch, about 1.25 inches. And I'm going to use my big one, and I'm just going to put it, you know, there's that marking. It's not going to be the exact spacing of my Crop-A-Dile as far as it's going to go in. So I'm just looking at it and going forward. Yeah, I'll have to clean it out each time so I can see inside that hole as to where I'm going. Like I said, then I'll have to punch it a few more times through the pattern paper, which is no big deal if you have a Crop-A-Dile. So I'm going to now close my lid, line everything up through the holes, just draw a light circle. So now on to this cover. You'll put your Crop-A-Dile in. It should be perfectly there. Never had that happen. It's a good thing we'll be punching the holes a few more times. It's not exactly a clean, unusual. There we go. Now at this point you can, no, not at this point, sorry, when you get all your pattern paper on, you can do eyelets. You will want to get some of the longer eyelets. That was my problem. My eyelets just weren't quite long enough. But I also found it's not really a problem through all this thickness if you don't want to use eyelets. But what I did do is before I put my papers down, I went along before I went to bed, after I put my pattern paper down, before I fully did the inside, and just glossy accented around the edges. But it was like, you know how you dry paint? So just get some glossy accents along the edge there, and then just swirl it around. And it made a nice, it kind of like finished it off. Okay, we'll do that later. So there is the holes. Now for the inside, the thing is, before we put down any of our pattern paper, before we put anything else down, we do have to put down our ribbon. And for this, I'm just using the white seam binding to go with my paper. And I'm not really measuring it out, but I do like the seam binding because it'll be easier to make our ends with our glossy accent. But for right now, I'm just doing that. So we want to bring it up from the inside. And you can use ribbon. I would just test out your different ribbons. And then, of course, straighten it up as much as possible. See, now what will happen here is we're going to build, oh, no, I don't have to. That's right. We'll build our pockets on top, so I don't have to mount this first. We're going to build our pockets right on top of there, so that does have to be in place. So, first of all, though, we want to now bring it through the top holes. What I'm doing is I'm making sure that I have enough, and I'm making sure that, there you go, it's even. Hold that up tight. Tie. Oh yeah, there's plenty. Won't cut that till the very end. And the nice thing I like the seam binding is it starts to get crinkly and kind of old looking. And there's enough room that you could actually bring another layer in. Let me see. I may do that with this album to bring the cream and white together. Grab my papers. Oh yeah, I think I will. So I'm going to go ahead with 2 of them on this album. Let me see how it works. And again, seam binding, you could do this. You could probably even bring in 3 layers. And the seam binding is thin enough. It shouldn't interfere. And if you use, or a sheer ribbon, the trick here is you want it flat. Piece of score tape just wants to hang out. So I'm going to grab both pieces. They are long. Just cut them even. Same with this side. Now we still have our hinges to make, and we're going to build that back page with the pockets, and we'll do the pockets on the inside. And then I'll just show you briefly, because I don't put my pages down till they're decorated, but I know you will want to go ahead and get decorating and probably put yours down, because I won't do that video portion of it. And I like those two together. Adds that fullness. And then what we'll do is, after we build the inside pockets, so at the end of the video, I will show you what I do at the ends of these, because that's why we're leaving it long until we're completely done. And then I will just run a little bit of glossy accents in a hole to show you. But I won't actually do that until everything's matted, but I'll do one so you can see. So now we just need to open it. This is a little pain in the neck, to be honest with you, while we're working, but we have to have them in there because the pockets are going to hold this down. Now, as I'm working, though, because I don't want them to move, I'm just going to take a piece of score tape. Over the top. And I'll leave it there. I'll remove it when I go to mat. So our cover's 8.5, but we want 9.5. And again, I'm just going to be using the scraps. So let me pull out some long scraps here. Actually, let me get my mat and scoring board back. So we will need those. Not long enough. Make sure that's a 4. Yep. And you should have some of those left over. Wow. We've used up a lot of our scraps, which is great. So it looks like mine are a little bit wider, but I don't want to go wider. I'm going to go ahead and cut one down to 4. And I'm going to cut it 4 by, I'll say 9.5. Actually, I'm going to go 9 3/8. You don't want it to get in the seam and the hinge of this. So let me go ahead and cut these down to 9 3/8 by 4. Make sure they're the same length. There's the first one. I'm just double checking that everything is the same length. And they're not, of course. It's not wide enough. Okay. Pockets we score on the 3 sides at 1/2 inch. And then on this top one, I did do that decorative, I did a decorative punch. Let me see if I did it on the top one and the bottom one. No, I just did it on the top one. And I'm going to go ahead and get this punched so that there's no issues. Bring up both sides. Okay, now I want to show you on your cover. So you've got about that 1/8 of an inch. Now it's up to you if that bothers you and you want to be able to pattern paper all the way to the very edge, go ahead and put your pattern paper down now. It doesn't bother me, and what I'll do is I just center my pocket from side to side, so it's pretty much an even, just tiny bit, but we know that way it won't get caught inside of our book binding. There we go. Okay, now what we want to do here, this one's going to go at the top. I don't know if you can hear, I have an older dog. Oh, she's starting to bark when I'm down here. She won't come down, but she doesn't want me down here. Apologize. She's not being neglected, I promise. Okay, now you have a decision to make. I did not do a decorative edge on this one because I did the lace and the pearls. That's one decision. If you want to go ahead and do decorative edge, go ahead and cut both. Now, you have the option to not adhere this if you want your tag to go all the way through. And let me see. I think, oh, see, I had mine go all the way through. So, I'm not going to fold this up. I'm just going to leave it like that. It won't hurt anything. Now, this is where you need to decide where you want your pockets to be. Now, remember, there's that 1/2 inch lip. So, you'll want to put that down and play with your pockets. Now, and there's no hard and fast rule that these have to be the 4 inches if you want them to be wider. Like I said, I like to use up scraps. So I think that looks good. And I'm taking into account that 1/2 inch. So once it's where you like it, you'll want to remove that using your pencil. Make a mark. That's where I know I need to match that. And let me double check. Looks good. So our first one, we're only going to go side to side with our score tape. We won't be putting anything on the bottom so that I can make the tags longer. And that's not going to hurt anything. If it bothers you, you can just go ahead and smash it out a little bit. no one's going to see that anyway. Then you want to miter this top corner. And again, I go pretty deep when it's been punched. Make sure that's a nice tight burnish. So we want to, like I said, put it down here where I have my mark. And I want to line it up somewhat side to side, because mine isn't going to go perfectly side to side because of my hinge. Line it up. Let's put that first side down. Hold that while I remove that. Now, when you mat your page, you will need to, well, you don't really need to be honest with you. You're going to put paper on top of it. If you want to reach down in and remove that score tape backing, I will just leave it on. So it will be underneath your pattern paper, so it's not going to cause an issue. You fold the bottom up. Score tape. And just like the pockets we made inside the book, I'm going to cut my corners and do it over my garbage. Okay, let's remove this bottom. Remove a little bit. Now I want to pull this tight. Now the important thing is here is to line up your pockets. Side to side. Adhere your bottom, remove your score tape. Bring it down, and there you have that front pocket. Okay, now for the back. So what we want to do is we want that flap, the flap that went over with the two pockets. So let me grab, I'm going to cut mine 8.5 by 8.5. I do want to check. I knew it was going to be too long, so I'm going to take 1/8 of an inch off. I don't want any hangover. Okay, so let's go ahead and score this. Now for this one, I'm going to score it at 3/4 of an inch. Ah, not 1 3/4, 3/4. Goodness. Good thing pattern paper is going over that. The reason I did it 3/4, it's on the back cover, just a little extra holding power, and I don't want I want it to be shorter because we're going to put the pattern paper down so our pattern paper will show. Okay, let's miter our corners. And again, don't go right up on that. Leave just a hair room so that you can, your hinge will close nice. Okay, I just removed a portion of the score tapes. Now I'm using where there's no score tape here at the bottom to line up where I want it. Just love how nice that lays straight. So now see, we'll have this base here. If you can, I don't know if you can see, there we go. But now the pattern paper will show in a little bit of the pocket. And now we're going to make our pocket that goes on the inside the exact same way that we made our front pockets. I'm telling you that's so. So this is 7.5. No, it's not. 7 3/4. But I'm going to make the pocket just a little shorter, so 8 5/8. Let me see. I'm hoping I have some scraps. Oh, I do. So I am going to make them both 4 inches. That one. Now this one will make the 9 and it's got to be longer. See if this, no, shoot. I have another 4-inch piece. Okay, it's long enough, and it is not long enough. Wow, we've used up a lot of our scraps. Oh, let me cut one 4-inch piece. Okay. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and score at half on each side. Once again, let's pull up my sides. Make sure it's going to fit. Awesome. It fits. Just let's looks like my cardstock's chewed up is the only thing. Now our other pocket. Looks great. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with my back cover. Miter those corners. And I moved just a hair here. No, wrong side. This side. Okay. Decide where I want it. That flap needs to close, so don't get too close there. Stick everything down and make sure, see, that will close very nice because I did leave a little bit of a space. And yes, when I put my paper in, I'll just need to adjust the size of the paper, but I'd rather have my flap close, and that's not going to show much anyway. Okay, put this one on, and I will be using a large magnet on my closure. To hold this shut. And then we will make our, just ran out, we'll make our hinge. Get that end open, there we go. And again, same thing with your corners. Other side. Right when I was doing it, the dog barked and just made me jump. I have to see what's wrong. Probably nothing. She just wants me upstairs. Now, I thought that this pocket was a little bit taller. So my pocket's a little taller, which is okay. Not sure. Should have measured this one scrap. That's okay. Closes nicely. And up at the top here above, I will have a large magnet to hold it closed. And then I decided I want to go ahead and do that cute little overflap here. So I'm going to cut this at 4 1/4. Let me see if I can do this one. Yep, 4 1/4. These are just scraps. They're not going to be huge. And let's see, they're going to have to be, oh, they are the same length by 5.5. So I'm going to score these at 1/2 inch each. And on these, I do want to decorate. Have more of a decorative corner. I don't want them just square. This is the way I should have done that page where we did the 3 tiers, but that's okay. Score tape. Now, we need to decide where we want these. Let's see my book, my finished book. Okay. Whoops, there goes my. We're going to put this one on top. Again, I'm just eyeballing. I do need to stand up here. Sorry, gotta grab my phone folder. There we go. And then the next one. Again, I'm just eyeballing. Go. You know, I did that on the other one. Every time that dog barks, she makes me jump. It's so quiet, and then she barks. Just once. Okay. And that'll be under. So, you have to have this one down first, then this goes on top. I hope you're not having to take it off because of me right this moment. Okay, there's some paper there. That's okay. Okay, let's do this right this time. So I'll put the right one down first. And this one will sit on top, and it will be a little bit, it'll feel like you're putting it off centered. Now I'm just kind of matching my sides so it's kind of even there. So part of it will go on top. There we go. So we can't lift it up. Oh my goodness. What on earth? I'm having one of those ADD moments. So I do have to, I'm so sorry. You're about ready to kill me at this moment, aren't you? Okay. I'll try and figure out how to actually take that out. If I don't get it out, you'll have to see this part, and I apologize. I will put a note. All right. So I was right the first time. Or when we took it away. So it has to go underneath here. I don't know why I did that. There we go. Pattern paper will take care of that. So will a magnet. I'm actually going to get my small trimmer and trim that off just a little bit so that they're even. Then I will have a saying across here. There will be a magnet that holds it down. And I'll see if I should be able to play off this magnet. So there's your back cover, and we will now move on to doing our spine. Let me get that moved. Now I'll get the paper cut and be right back.